everybody, Dan Illman, Mike here, taking a look at the DRF race of the day for Wednesday, September the 18th. It's race number 6 at Delaware Park. Let's throw up the field for the Obeah. $125,000 is the purse. We're going 1 1/16 miles for fillies and mares. Now, 12 entered this race. 3 just cross-entered before we came on the air in a stakes race at Laurel Park on Saturday. So this race might have some changes because some of the horses cross-entered. The 9 Saddle Up Jesse, the 5-2 Morning Line favorite, the 12 Miss New York. These are logical contenders.
Yeah, I think they're both very logical contenders. And as you mentioned, the 9 is your morning line favorite. And I don't know, Dan, it feels like a really good spot for Saddle Up Jessie. And I have no argument with her being the horse to beat in here. I can't say that I'm, thrilled overall with her form, but feels like a good race makes her super tough in here.
There is also the expectation of some wet going at Delaware on Wednesday, so you might want to keep an eye out for horses with prior wet track form. Now, we're going to throw up the Timeform US Pace Projector. Please keep in mind that this Pace Projector will automatically update after scratches are announced Wednesday morning. Hot Fudge Warrior, the number 11, should show good speed. After all, she's stretching out significantly in distance, and she has sprint speed.
Yeah, I saw her, making the lead. If they run her in this race outside post, they probably got to come out of there running, Dan. I thought she was, a pretty likely pace setter. I won't argue too hard with the fast pace designation. I think things could get pretty heated in here.
The horse likely to run in this race is the 6 Frosto Tool. She would benefit from a fast pace. She has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. And while she was overmatched last time out on the Molly Pitcher, we'll talk about it in a little bit. It's not like that trip worked out for her. Yeah. Another horse likely to come from the back of the pack is the Christophe Clement train number 1, Evidencias. This horse is a Group 1 winner on turf in her native Brazil, and she's yet to reach the winner's circle since being imported from Brazil to the Clement barn. She's only raced once on turf. It seems like she enjoys the dirt. They ran her in the Caesar's Wish last time out, and she was just no match for Saddle Up Jessie, although that was a speed-favoring track where they ran 1-2 all the way around.
That's true. And listen, maybe this race is really going to set up for her. She's drawn inside, so she's going to get to save a ton of ground in this race, Dan, and then try to make a run into perhaps will be a good setup for her. I guess the question is, how good is she really? I mean, they've run her 6 times on dirt over here. She's hit the board in all those races, but I don't know. Did you have one of those starts that you wanted to pick out and say, oh, I want to better back off of that one?
Especially if there are scratches, her odds are automatically going to go down, considering the connections, leading rider Jamie Rodriguez and, of course, Christophe Clement. The 2 is Helen Ortiz, 4th last time out in a race at Delaware where she was entered for the $8,000 claiming option. If you want to give her a mulligan for that one, fine. She was involved in a fast pace and she dueled the favorite into defeat. That horse ran last, but her prior races against cheaper don't inspire.
Yeah, she's a low-level claimer stepping into a stakes race. And even though this isn't a super strong field, she's in over her head against these horses.
Magical Loot would be an interesting shipper for trainer Ian Wilkes. This one earned a stakes victory 2 starts back at Prairie Meadows in the Iowa Distaff. Last time out, though, a little bit under par in the Groupie Doll Stakes. Although the 4th place finisher of the Groupie Doll came back and pulled off an upset in the Grade 2 Locust Grove at Churchill Downs with an 88 buyer. So I think she might fit with this group.
Yeah, that's how I looked at her too. And I also feel like, among the horses who are probably going to be closing in this race, I think I kind of prefer her, Dan. I mean, she's not a superstar by any stretch of the imagination, but I like her running style. I think she's got a race or 2 in her that's going to give her a real chance in this race. She's probably going to be a fair price in here as well. I'm using this horse.
Sweet Alyssa, the number 4, became a terror at Evangeline Downs earlier this year, winning 3 consecutive races over that surface. Now, they tried her at Laurel in the Alma North Stakes. That was a sprint going 6.5 furlongs, and she did not fire her best shot at all. The 6th horse came back to place 3rd in a restricted stake at Laurel with a 71 buyer. I'll throw the turf race out. I just didn't like the Alma North, even though it was at a distance that might be shorter than her best.
I feel the same way about her. I mean, I don't even know if that's enough of an excuse, Dan, for that effort in the Alma North. It feels like they sort of tested her a little bit in that race, and she just wasn't quite up for it.
Ragtime Belle is the number 5, and she's just coming off a blowout victory in this race against only 3 other foes. It was her 2nd start of the form cycle. I talked to Mac Robertson earlier today, and he said that this mare is just a late-blooming horse who has really come around since being laid up last fall. Her first race on turf, he said she was short and needed the race, and this race was a breakout performance, actually earning the field's best last buyer speed figure of 88.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like another horse who fits maybe the dynamics of this race pretty well, then, because she can just sort of sit a little bit and then make a run when it's time to go. Obviously, if she can, repeat that last one, she can contend in this race. We'll see if she's able to do it.
Frosto Tool's been sort of an interesting story. Mike Deeney was the owner and trainer for the first four starts, and then this horse was sold to Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners privately, sent to Todd Pletcher, and it just didn't work out in three starts for Todd. So Eclipse gave her back to Deeney, and she's been grinding away with some good performances, including a graded stakes placing last time out in the Molly Pitcher. Now, she was no match for champion Idiomatic, who came back and ran second in the Personal Ensign with a 96 buyer, might be the best older filly and mare in the country. This horse had no chance in that race. She's four wide, five path on the backstretch, tries to get into it with a four wide bid in a race that doesn't have any pace. She had no shot.
True enough. I mean, listen, to me, there was no trip that was going to get her,
Right.
close to the winner's circle in the Molly Pitcher, but that's neither here nor there. The stuff that you were laying out earlier, though, Dan, is kind of why I don't like her. I mean, she started out her career, won her first couple of dirt starts, and I think they thought they really had something there. They turned her over to Pletcher, tried to make her a graded stakes horse as a 3-year-old, and she really didn't come close. She didn't run well in the Gazelle. She was terrible in the Acorn, and I'm not so sure that she's gotten that much better since Deeney has retaken over control of this horse. I mean, she's fine, and I suppose she could be around at the end of this thing, but I'm not sure that she's that good, and I don't want to bet her against this field.
I asked Deeney about her. All three of her lifetime wins have come at Tampa Bay Downs, and he says she's a bit of a timid sort and that the kickback at Tampa Bay isn't that oppressive, and she seems to like that because two starts back at Thistledown, she was down inside and supposedly hated getting the dirt kicked back in her face. Maybe she can work out an outside trip here. A very hearty New York bred is up next. That's the number 7, Venty Valentine, who scored the Critical Eye Stakes over a muddy track, which could be key on Wednesday, 3 starts back. She was simply much the best that day, and then she was completely overmatched in the Shoe V against Raging Sea, who came back to best Idiomatic in the Personal Ensign. So she has excuses for her last 2 starts, the Raging Sea race and then the Turf Experiment, which she just didn't handle.
Yeah, I agree with all that. She's just a rock solid New York bred. There are no flashy figures on her page, but man, is she a horse who's been good for a long time. She always shows up. A mile and an eighth for that win, 3 starts back, Dan. She does really like about track, but I'm not even sure that that's a great distance for her. A little bit shorter, probably a little better for Venty Valentine. I don't know, man. I think she's a contender in this race for sure.
If there are some scratches, I might want to then include the 8 Miles of Smiles. Scratches might reduce the pace. This horse likes to be up close to the pace, and it might take some of the major class protagonists out as well. This horse ran in the Molly Pitcher 2 starts back without Lasix, and she was the one chasing Idiomatic in the early part of the race. I realized the fractions weren't very fast, but that can't be an easy trip chasing that classy horse, and then she tired. Last time out, she was just well beaten by a horse that was simply better than she was in a second level allowance at Monmouth, but I think she could work out a decent trip.
Yeah, it seems like that winner of the most recent race there has gotten in really good form recently, and Miles of Smiles just couldn't go with her. I thought she was a tough call because I agree with your take that there are some scratches. Maybe the pace comes back a little bit, and that's a great running style for this horse to sort of be up close if they're not going that fast. And that, those wins, 3 and 4 starts back, that's kind of the trip she pulled. I mean, weaker horses, the paces weren't fast. She's right up close, and she wins easily. I don't know if she's going to be able to get that kind of trip in here, Dan, but maybe the scratches will help her.
Saddle Up Jessie is the number 9. She's the morning line favorite, and probably deservedly so. She was second in the Delaware handicap, the track's signature race, 2 starts back, and she made a pretty bold run on the far turn to get into contention, and then was turned away by a very nice mare in Honor D Lady. They ran her back off of that race in the Caesar's Wish at Laurel, and again, they ran 1-2 all the way around the track. Malibu Beauty was 9-1 in this race, but she probably shouldn't have been because she's always dangerous when on the lead. Saddle Up Jessie actually poked ahead in front of her at the 5/16 pole, but she couldn't seal the deal.
Yeah, I just couldn't get by. It is a pretty good horse. I don't know. I don't want to give her, too big of an excuse here at 4-5, but that is a nice horse that she couldn't get by. Um, I don't really know what to say, Dan. She's way the horse to beat in here. This was a really good claim by Brittany Russell sort of early last year. They did really good work with her. They kept moving her up in class. She kept delivering. I was on her kind of early, and she's kind of lost me recently, but maybe I'm just being too hard on her, Dan. They run her in a bunch of graded races. she's not quite that kind of horse, but this is certainly the right kind of race to run her in.
A Malibu Beauty came back to win the All Brandy, a stakes race at Laurel, a restricted event with a 79 buyer. I think the mile and 3/16 at Delaware saw her out. She's likely better at these slightly shorter distances, and she has obviously the good form at Delaware Park. We'll see if she runs here. She's cross-entered on Sunday at Laurel. Reclusive is as well. The number 10's coming off a victory at Parks. Let's watch that performance. 7/8 of a mile. I thought this was a really good pace setup for Eclusive, who comes from the back of the pack and just looks good the final eighth of a mile, kicking down 3 horses in front of her. She's in exceptional form. She's won 3 of her last 4 starts, and the only loss during that streak came when she was second by a neck.
Yeah, hoping that pace projector that we showed her, hopefully she's hoping the field stays intact and the pace projector's right, and she gets a little bit of a fast pace. I'm concerned that she's a closing sprinter, Dan, and I hate betting those horses stretching out. They've never gone beyond 7 furlongs with this horse on the main track. One turf route that, you don't want to hold that race against her, obviously, but she's got to prove that she can get 2 turns against some better horses, and that she can, deliver that late run going longer.
Sort of interesting that they've never really stretched her out around 2 turns. After all, her sire flat out wanted to run all day long. Maybe Reclusive, though, run Sunday in that 1-turn stake at Laurel. Hot Fudge Warrior is up next, the number 11. This horse ran pretty well last time out around the bull ring. It's a 2-turn 6.5 at Timonium, and I'm not sure I really trust anything that happens at Timonium, but Hot Fudge Warrior is going to end up finishing second.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of these races over there. I sort of leave that to you. If you had something interesting to say, I'd go with it. She's fast. She'll probably make the lead in this race. I don't really trust her to stretch out against a field like this one and take them all the way.
Again, she has speed. She's going to stretch out. Again, the Timonium races to me are almost impossible. They're like the Kentucky Downs dirt racing. I watch those Kentucky Downs dirt races, and I usually just draw them a line through them when they roll them back. Miss New York is up next, the number 12. She's a very square price on the morning line. I'm not sure she should be 10-1. She was a stakes winner at Monmouth last year in the Boiling Springs, and it just looks like Jorge Delgado is rounding her back into her best form. She's had 2 starts this year, including this likable allowance win at Laurel, where she just sat inside, eased out to split horses. It was a really nice trip, but it was never in doubt the result.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, she got a perfect trip in this race, but it always looked like she was going to win. She's in behind the odds-on favorite on the lead, Dan. She runs right by that horse in the stretch, and they just leave the rest of these horses in the dust. I liked this performance. It felt like the first start back sprinting was a prep. She took the step forward there. She's got form from stakes form as a 3-year-old that she can really build on in this race. I thought there was a lot to like here.
But it's possible that the post position draw, post 12, forces Jorge Delgado's hand, and he decides to wait for another day, and that day would likely be Sunday at Laurel Park. Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for the Obeah. We're all worried about scratches. We've got horses that are cross-entered. You have Miss New York. I have Saddle Up Jesse.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of hope that Mr. York runs here. Like you, I didn't think the 10-1, the morning line would hold necessarily, but I think this is a good spot for her. If she scratches and Saddle Up Jesse runs here, I guess Saddle Up Jesse will just win. And if neither of them run here and they both go the weekend, it's better for me. I don't have to watch this race at all.
I guess if they both scratch, I would be slightly interested in the number 8 in here, the horse that we talked about that might have have the tactical speed to get up close to the pace for Joe Orsino. We both have the same exacta. We're hoping this race stays together because it is a pretty good betting race if it stays intact. 12-9-1-3 for Mike, 9-12-8-5 for me. It's Wednesday's Obeah at Delaware. Good luck.